The average athlete holds back their potential because they care way too much about what other people think. But the all-time greats, they reach a point where opinions, criticism, and judgment don't touch them. They block out the noise completely. So how do they do that? Well, in today's video, I'm going to show you how to stop caring about other people's opinions. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a mental performance coach to pro athletes all around the world. And everything I'm about to share is the exact same insights that I give to the pros that I work with. So let's get started. So why is it that you care so much about other people's opinions? There are many reasons, but the three most common ones that I see and that psychology backs up of what we're going to break down in this video. And the first one is something you've probably never even heard of before. It's called the fawn response. So picture this, you're an athlete who's always been known as the coach's favorite. You never talk back, you're always polite, you work hard, you never complain. But deep down, you're not doing all of that just because you're disciplined or respectful. You're doing it because you're terrified of disappointing someone. The fawn response is what happens when your nervous system tries to protect you, not by fighting or running away from a threat, but by trying to please that threat. It's your body's way of saying, if I can just make everyone happy, I'll be safe. Fawning is the behavior that we engage in when we fear that we've disappointed someone or that we've done something wrong. It's when we become hyper alert to others' emotions, constantly scanning faces, tone of voice, body language, just to make sure that we're not in trouble. For athletes, this shows up everywhere. You overthink what your coach might think of you after a mistake and nervously glance over to see his reaction. You apologize even when you haven't done anything wrong. You play it safe because taking risks might mean judgment. And here's the true cost. To please others, you abandon yourself. You lose that raw, expressive version of you, the one who plays freely, instinctively. Because when your safety depends on being liked, your performance depends on other people's approval. And that's a trap that you'll never win. The second reason you care so much about other people's opinions is something called the spotlight effect. This is a psychological bias where we massively overestimate how much other people notice or care about what we do. Think about an ice hockey player who makes a mistake. Maybe they lose the puck on a power play or miss a decent chance on goal. Instantly their mind goes, everyone saw that. My coach is fuming, the crowd thinks I'm useless. But here's the truth. A lot of people didn't even register it. The fans are looking at the scoreboard, the bench is already focused on the next line change, and your teammates are thinking about their next shift. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect because in your head, you're standing on a stage with a bright light shining on you and everyone's apparently watching. But in reality, every single person around you is standing on their own stage, under their own spotlight, thinking the exact same thing. You're living like the world's eyes are on you, when most people are too busy worrying about themselves to care. Once you see that, it becomes freeing, because when you realize how little people are actually paying attention to you, you stop performing for the imaginary audience in your head, and instead you go back to performing for yourself. The third reason you care about other people's opinions is because deep down, your brain is wired for social status. From an evolutionary standpoint, status used to mean survival. Thousands of years ago, if you were liked, respected, and valued by the tribe, you were safe. You had food, you had protection, you had community. But if you lost that status, if you were rejected or excluded, that could literally mean death. So our brains just learn to monitor our position in the social hierarchy constantly. Fast forward to today and that ancient wiring hasn't gone anywhere. It's actually been amplified, especially in sport. As an athlete, your world is built around comparison. Stats, rankings, selections, followers, comments, highlight clips. It's endless. And when you mix that with social media, you've basically got an IV drip of status feedback. You post a clip of your performance and suddenly you're not just thinking about how well you played. Instead, you're thinking, how many likes did that play get? Or who commented? Or did they think that I look good? It becomes addictive because every like, every compliment, every share gives your brain a little dopamine hit. But the moment that feedback drops, your self-worth drops with it. And that's the trap. When your confidence comes from comparison, it disappears the moment someone else looks better than you. But the goal isn't to stop caring about status completely, it's to stop letting it own you. Because real confidence isn't built on where you rank today. It's built on knowing who you are, even when no one's watching. So now that we know why you care so much about other people's opinions, hopefully you can recognize some of the patterns in yourself. But you're probably thinking, all right, but how do I actually fix it? Well, let's go through 3 simple practical tools that I use with professional athletes to help them stop caring and finally play free. First up, we have what I call, is it that deep? It's a simple reframing technique that cuts through the noise instantly. When you catch yourself overthinking, worried about what your coach thought, what your teammates said, or what people might be saying online about you, ask yourself, is it really that deep? Picture that person whose opinion you're worried about. Maybe it is a teammate, a coach, or a scout. Now imagine them at 11 p.m. tonight lying in bed. Do you honestly think they're lying there, staring at the ceiling, thinking about the mistake that you made in training? Of course not. They've got their own worries, their own life, their own problems. Meanwhile, you're the one losing sleep over their opinion. When you realize how stupid this is, it's freeing, because suddenly you now see how small that moment really is in the bigger picture. Another question I like athletes to ask is, will this matter in a week, a month, a year? 99% of the time, the answer is no. Even those supposedly career-defining moments usually aren't as defining as they feel in that moment. Take Steven Gerrard, for example. His slip against Chelsea, it's one of the most replayed clips in Premier League history. Absolutely brutal moment. But does it define him? No, because he's still one of Liverpool's greatest ever players. A Champions League winner, a legend. Yeah, that slip will always sting, but in the grand scheme of things, it's not that deep. I'm sure Istanbul 2005 overrides that bad moment for him. So the next time you feel yourself spiraling over someone's opinion, ask yourself the question, is it that deep? Because most of the time, it isn't. The second tool I use with athletes is something I call the internal scoreboard. The idea is simple. Instead of measuring yourself by what others think, such as coaches, teammates, fans, or social media, you measure yourself by your own values and beliefs. And nobody does this better than Novak Djokovic. He's had countless moments in his career where he's chosen his own path over public approval. And often that's brought him a ton of criticism. And think about his matches against Roger Federer at Wimbledon. The crowd would often be chanting Roger repeatedly, clearly favouring him. So what did Djokovic do? Well, he imagined the chants were for him. He stayed in his own internal world, focused on what mattered to him, not the audience. He's also done things that many would call wacky or pseudo-scientific. Special diets, extreme recovery routines, and methods that draw a lot of attention and skepticism. Yet he sticks to them because they align with his internal scoreboard. What he believes will make him better, stronger, and perform at his peak. Even when he goads a crowd that's booing him, he's not reacting out of fear or trying to please anyone. He is playing by his own rules, guided by his own standards. That's the power of an internal scoreboard. It allows you to filter out noise, criticism, and judgment because you're anchored in what matters to you, not everyone else. So when you catch yourself spiraling over someone's opinion, ask yourself, does this align with my internal scoreboard? If yes, keep going. If no, ask yourself whether changing your actions actually benefits you or just someone else's judgment. The third tool is all about controlled fawning, or what I like to call safe people pleasing. Now, let me be clear, this isn't about erasing people pleasing completely. You're not trying to become some kind of cold, selfish athlete. That wouldn't work, and it would actually hurt your performance. The key is knowing the difference between fawning as a survival strategy and fawning as a tool. In sport, there are plenty of times that you do need to care about other people's opinions, and that's okay. For example, your coach's opinion does matter, because if you completely ignore it, then you won't learn the system, you won't adapt to the tactics, and you won't progress. Your teammates' opinions matter too, because if you don't consider how your actions impact them, you risk becoming selfish, toxic, or just plain hard to play with. The difference is intention. You're not pleasing to feel safe or avoid judgment. You're adjusting strategically because it serves your goals and the team. And here are a few questions to help guide this in real time. Is this adjustment helping me achieve my goals, or am I just avoiding conflict? Am I caring about this person's opinion because it matters strategically, or because I'm trying to feel safe? Will this decision strengthen my performance or weaken my autonomy? Controlled fawning means you choose when and where it's useful instead of letting it dominate your mind or define your worth. You still care, just in a measured, purposeful way, which lets you maintain focus, confidence, and performance whilst navigating team dynamics and sport politics effectively. So look, apply these three tools. Is it that deep? Your internal scoreboard and controlled fawning, and you'll get to a place where you're no longer held back by the opinions of others. You'll stop performing for approval, stop spiraling over judgment, and start playing freely the way that you were meant to. Because at the end of the day, the only opinion that always matters is your own.